Can you blink twice if you've shot the king? Oh, interesting.
No, I haven't shot the king yet. But I am shooting at the palace.
Have you shot the
next week.
sheriff?
I haven't shot the sheriff, but I'm shooting someone at the palace.
Well, who shot the sheriff?
They didn't shoot the deputy.
There?
I know what they did.
Yeah, they shot the deputy.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited for this podcast because we have a returning guest. And you know what? I'm going to do something. I'm going to allow you the permission to only go by one name because you are fashionable enough, the name's cool enough, and you're a big enough artist. So, Sanjay, we're not doing last names with you anymore. I think you need to get rid of it off your website.
Okay.
You're like Prince.
Okay. The artist
Are you cool with
formerly
that?
known as Sanjay Jogia.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Are you cool with that? Let's get rid of it.
Sanjay's good.
Sanjay.
Yeah.
You know, I think we should start branding it now.
Yeah.
Turn you into a star.
Just use the S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sanjay.
Like super.
Yeah. We could create, if you could create a superhero suit, you're someone who likes good clothing and fashion, what would it be? What would it look like?
Oh man. I'm a Batman fan, but I'm also an Iron Man fan.
All right.
So it's gonna be one of those two.
Who's your favorite Batman?
Oh, Christian Bale.
Okay.
Hold on. That's a really good question. I love the first Michael Keaton one.
All right. Yeah.
And now he's making a comeback as Batman.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Where have I been? When's this coming out?
Did you not watch the Super Bowl?
I kind of. No,
there was
I really
literally
didn't.
Michael Keaton appearing as Batman, and
Is it a joke?
No.
Is it geriatric Batman?
it's not. It's going to be a thing.
An old Batman.
Yeah, it's going
It's
to
like
be
his
a
back
thing.
hurts more than usual.
Yeah.
Alfred is what? He's long gone.
Yeah, I guess he's gone. I don't know. They
Super
didn't- they
dead.
didn't-
So who's
they
getting
didn't
all
give
of
you
his
that.
stuff?
He
Who's helping
resurrected.
him?
It's going to happen.
So he has no help. He's super old.
Michael
This
Keaton's
is a
coming back.
recipe for disaster.
He's coming back as
DC
Batman.
needs to. All right. All right. Let's get to photography because that's what you do, right? You're a photographer.
Yep.
And
And
is it the best thing ever?
yeah, I mean, so that wasn't my background, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of was. I grew up with photography. My dad worked for Kodak for 35 years in a factory making film. And I trained and qualified as an architect. So I did that whole thing. In the UK, it's like 7 to 9 years, depending on like which universities you study at. So did that whole thing, practiced as an architect. Photography was with me through the whole journey, actually. So through university, all the presentations I did, drawings, we used to have to build models of our designs, and I used to photograph these things with film. So we used to go to the roof of the building, roof of the university, and literally photograph this thing up against the sky. And that became a thing. You know, the other students started asking me to like photograph their stuff as well. So the business kind of started there because I'd charge them for it. And and then it just kind of stayed. But then it stayed so much that it came back and kind of took over my life. So I think 2010 maybe. So I started the business in 2007. So maybe 2009, 2010. I quit the job. So my wife and I, we went 4-day weeks and then 3-day weeks and then just resigned and never looked back.
How did you resign? Was it dramatic? Did you slam the door on the way out?
No, that's not my style.
Was it super well-written letter?
Yeah, I closed it very softly on the way out. It was interesting. I needed to take some time out. I took a long vacation because we were working really hard during that time. This was during the kind of the credit crunch and the recessions of 2007, 2008, 2009, that sort of thing. And what had happened was I chose to go 3-day weeks, but they forced other people to go 3-day weeks just because of the economy. So the interesting thing was they started asking everyone to come back 4 or 5-day weeks on reduced pay. And I said, well, no, that's just not going to happen. I've got this other business going and it's it's demanding my time, and I want to give it that time. And I also have the freedom to just do the things I want to do as my own business owner, as a creative. And they said, okay, well, how about you come back on full pay? Nope, that's not going to happen. Okay, what's it going to take? Nothing. I've made up my mind. Okay. How about we make you partner? So they were offering me a partnership to stay. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. I'm out. And it was a combination of having experienced the freedom of being my own boss, which, let's face it, is kind of difficult when you run your own business. It has its pitfalls. It has its, there are pros and cons to this sort of thing. But the freedom, the creative freedom that came with it, was the thing that really did it for me. And I'm not built to be an employee. I'm not built to work for people. I don't think I could ever go back to doing that. And I'd made up my mind, and that was cool. And after that, I discovered working from home way before the pandemic. Straight after I quit that job, and I was working from home with the photography business. Very, very quickly, I realized that I needed to separate the home and business life.
Yeah.
So within a few years, we opened a showroom. And so we live in an area called Harrow, which is kind of northwest London. And there's a part of that called Harrow on the Hill, which it's literally that. It's where Harrow started, on top of this hill. So Winston Churchill went to school at Harrow School, and a few other famous people, Benedict Cumberbatch and Indian Prime Minister Nehru and things like that. So it's steeped in history. And when you go there, it's beautiful. It's like proper oldie worldy, beautiful old buildings, old pubs. And we're just surrounded.
Harry Potter.
Yeah. Well, actually, they shot some scenes at the school. The Crown, they shot scenes from The Crown at the school. So it's got that vibe. So the whole area is surrounded by that. I've always wanted to be up there on the hill. So we just started looking for places up there, and we found this one spot which was just perfect for our business. So it's kind of like a client experience space, and we have our editing suite in there as well. So we got to separate home and business life. And I didn't want clients to come home to meet with us and have a consultation. And we make a point of meeting every single client.
Because your shoes are everywhere laying around?
Exactly. No.
Always?
No, I just, I think I think where our brand sits, it's at the high end for weddings.
Yeah.
We're wedding and portrait photographers, but primarily weddings. There's something about clients coming to your home that undermines the high-end feel
of course.
of a brand.
Yeah.
Even it doesn't matter how nice your home is.
Yeah.
They're still coming to your private space. Whereas when they come to a dedicated space, in the prestigious part of town, up on the hill, and most people don't even know this area exists. It just there's an instant association with the brand and what they should expect in terms of service and quality and attention to detail and the price tag that goes with that too.
Yeah. So you're crushing the wedding market in your area and probably parts of the world because you're probably traveling. It seems like it.
Since day one, yeah.
Yeah. So how many people are people working for you? Do you have second shooters? Are you building a little army empire? And what's the long-term goal with the company?
That's a really good question. Before COVID, it was pure weddings, and we had part-time staff, we had freelancers, and full-time is myself and my wife. But then when the pandemic hit, everyone had to do what they had to do to survive. We couldn't see each other. We couldn't rely on them. They couldn't rely on us. We weren't allowed in the same space together. We had to be in our own bubble. So my wife and I, we could leave home and walk up to the hill because it's only like a 20-minute walk. And that was great, like great therapy, just being able to leave the house, walk up to the hill. And it was a ghost town. There was nobody around. But the other guys had to do what they had to do to survive. And some of them had to, they weren't from the UK originally, so they went back home to various countries in Europe or whatever it was. But during that time, we took the opportunity to kind of reinvent slightly. So the portraiture which is something that we wanted to do, maybe 2018, 2019, kind of asserted itself at that point. And it was, in a way, quite good timing because it gave us time to allow it to gestate properly. And now, post-COVID, it's picked up and it's gaining the momentum that, organically, that it needs for it to become what it needs to become. And in a strange sort of way, it's kind of leapfrogged the original intention to something completely, well, not completely different, maybe unique. Maybe it is completely different. Basically, what had happened was we decided we were going to do this whole portrait thing. We don't have a shoot space, a studio in the showroom. It's just a meeting space, essentially, like a client experience space. So right now I'm kind of renting high-end studios in London, and then eventually we'll get a studio shoot space. But then that was the plan. What started happening was when people realized that we were doing portraits, the word spread toward the high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals, like those circles, that I do portraits. So the representatives of those ultra high nets were reaching out saying, we need to shoot, we need to do portrait sessions, that sort of thing. With those guys, it's all under NDAs, it's all like really secret. So we can't even market this stuff. But they'll come to me with the basic brief of wanting to do a portrait session. But when you're talking to these guys, you want to develop the brief into something very unique. So we'll meet, we'll develop the brief, we'll expand it, we'll blow it up and then bring it back down again and distill it to what they actually need, not what they think they need.
Wait, why are these photos so secretive? What are these guys using these photos? Are these tender pics of like the Fortune 500? What's going on?
And are these for more like branding, or are they like personal photos?
No,
or
personal. These
personal
guys,
photos.
Yeah, I mean, I have.
They're tender photos. What? Come on, these guys.
I
100%.
have. No, so it's like, for example, they're very, very wealthy individuals.
Oh.
And
so it's like a 10-foot up, and it's going to go above a 30-foot fireplace.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But they're very private. They're very secretive.
And they're like family photos or individual?
Both.
Okay.
Both. So, for example, I'll have some Middle Eastern clients, some from the States, some Brits, some British Indians, that kind of thing. And they kind of operate in circles of high-end business, of politics, of royalty, that sort of thing. And they just don't want their stuff plastered all over social media. So, we've got to sign NDAs for them. But it's cool because their circles will see the work and the networking just kind of spirals from that. So once you're into these circles, it just snowballs.
All right, let's talk about outfits in these circles, these secret circles. What's the most ridiculous thing these guys are showing up with?
No, I mean, they're pretty tasteful, but
armor?
they're just... No,
swords. How many swords are here?
It's nothing crazy like that, but they spend crazy amounts of money on this.
You're going to tell us after the podcast, all right? Come on,
like,
after the podcast.
No, there hasn't been... there have been no coats of armor yet.
All right.
Bruce Wayne hasn't turned up with a Batman outfit.
Oh,
yeah,
disappointed.
It's because he's asleep by 3.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah. I haven't met Tony Stark yet, but no. These guys, we get stylists in, so the stylist will style the entire family, the kids, the mom and dad, everybody. And
are these more in studio or more on location? Like, do people want you to come to their house to do this, or?
Yeah, so these guys will be living central London, like it's what we call Zone 1, maybe
right.
Zone 2, and that sort of thing. So sometimes it's on location, but most of the time it's in their home or in a high-end studio near where they live, because they won't leave Zone 1. That's their domain. That's just kind of where they are. That's central London. So we're talking about like Knightsbridge, Mayfair, that sort of thing. And it doesn't really get much more high-end than that. So they don't want to have to travel far. But every client has a different brief, you see, so it's not always the same thing. It's a lot of the time it's not even in the UK. Like if they're from a different country, they may say, actually, look, we're going over here. It's a vacation. We want that documented. We want to do a portrait session out there. We actually want these prints, huge prints and albums, whatever it is, for our home in whichever country. And then we'll create a really interesting kind of delivery event. So like an unveiling event of their products. And it becomes a little social networking event with their circle. So really what
that's really good for you.
It's really good for me.
It's like an unveiling moment.
Yeah,
but
within their
there.
private circles, which you wouldn't which one wouldn't normally be exposed to.
So
Ouija boards or no Ouija boards?
No Ouija
There's
boards.
Can you
Ouija
blink
boards.
twice if you've shot the king? Oh, interesting.
No, I haven't shot the
Interesting.
king yet. But I am shooting at
Have
the
you
palace.
shot the
next week.
sheriff?
I haven't shot the sheriff, but I'm shooting someone at the palace.
Well,
next
who
week.
shot the sheriff?
They
See
didn't
what I
shoot the
did there?
deputy. I know what they did.
Yeah, they shot the deputy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you into music?
I love music.
And how do you consume music?
How do I consume music? I have my, just checking. I have my headphones with me every day. But when I get a chance, I will sit in my man cave, kill the lights, and drown in sound. I love music. Love music.
Do you do other things while listening to music, or you are sitting there, eyes closed, still?
Usually there's too much stuff to do, and I need to have it on in the background. But there are times where I just need like music therapy. You know,
Yeah.
I just want to sit in the room and do nothing. I don't get to do that as often as I'd like, which is a shame because, you know, I built a hell of a sound system. You know, I mean, it's beautiful.
What
It
is it?
sounds great. So it's monitor audio speakers. They have a range called the Gold. So it's like the Gold 300s and all the other satellite speakers that kind of go with that. I have an Arcam receiver and Primaire power amps. So I've got two of those, which monoblock my floor standing speakers. So when I'm listening to music, it's purely stereo sound. I switch off all the other channels. I just go stereo, kill the
Yeah.
subwoofer, kill everything.
It's the only way to go.
Yeah, and
That's how it was made.
it's such a beautifully balanced system. Everything is completely neutral. I haven't turned up the bass. I haven't turned up the treble. There's no sound shaping. It's just perfection. It really is.
What do you
So-
think? What do you think the best thing to listen to on a really good pair of speakers is?
Oh wow, depends on the mood. You know, it could be anything from Pink Floyd to Dave Brubeck Quartet to Tiesto. It just depends on the mood, you know.
Yeah. So during COVID, on the way back from getting the COVID shot, we stopped. We were listening to some podcast and they were talking about audio.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a Best Buy near my home. You know what a Best
Yeah.
You know what Best Buy is.
Yeah.
There was a Best Buy by my home that had one of their kind of high-end sound rooms with speakers that you go into.
Yeah.
And I was real stoned, like real stoned, right? I knew that I was taking the day off tomorrow. I was like, all right, I'm going to stop by, see what this is about. Spent a few hours there listening to different ones. Ended up getting a pair of Martin Logan, the electrostatic ones.
Wow.
And when you said Pink Floyd, that made me
Yeah.
think, I found the song Welcome to the Machine.
Yeah.
Just laying on the ground. I think I've done it to
Yeah,
you.
we've definitely done it.
Like just laying on the ground and like absorbing it physically
Uh-huh.
and listening to it.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
There was actually Aaron Naces who got me into hi-fi audio. He was moving out of Chicago and I went up there and spent the weekend with him. And he had a pair of Sonus Fabers
Okay.
and he was selling them. And at the time I was like, I can't spend this much on speakers, but I didn't really know. He played Adele
Yeah.
and holy shit, I was like,
She was in the room.
that was like I was there.
Yeah.
And she was singing, and I was like, I didn't know sound could be that good.
Oh yeah, and that's, it's a revelation. It's like in photography, you know, we talk about dynamic range, we talk about all these adjustments that we do, and contrast and tone curves and this, that, and the other. And it's the same thing with audio. It really is. Like sound shaping is the same thing.
All right.
So, you know, Martin Logans are amazing because they have the ribbon. It's electrostatic, so you don't get that peaky high end. And the monitors I have ribbon tweeters, electrostatic speakers, tweeters. So that high end, it doesn't hurt your ears. And you can turn the thing up to like 10/10 and
Yeah.
it's just composed all the way through. It's a thing of beauty. Like,
Yeah.
so when non-believers hear a really good system, they're suddenly like, holy shit, this is it's like hearing the song for the first time ever.
Yeah, really
You know
is.
what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so record, vinyl, or you just everything digital?
It's all gone digital now. I used to have records.
It's
I
not
think
upkeep.
my brother has all the vinyls now somewhere in his attic, I think. But I hate listening to that system with Spotify. I'll do that with my phone and my headphones, you know, like the earplugs. But it's too compressed.
Yeah. lossy.
You can hear the compression. So iTunes.
Yeah.
Apple
Spotify
Music.
doesn't have that feature yet, right?
There was rumors of it, but I don't know what's happened with that. They're supposed to have lossless coming. I don't know.
I think the population of people who really care about that is too small.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
We should start a campaign and start educating people
I was
and
upset
demanding more.
People not knowing,
Well, we've just started it.
not
Yeah.
experience.
All right. So do the wires matter?
Yes.
Big time. Okay. So,
Yeah.
but they get really expensive.
Yeah.
And a lot of all right. So half the people that I talk to are like, they don't matter.
Oh.
And half are like, yeah, no, they really do.
I-
Obviously, they're super cheap ones, but you can easily spend thousands of dollars on speaker wires.
Yeah, you get to a point of diminishing returns. That's true. I mean, okay. I have good cabling all the way around, but my floor standers have nicer cabling than the rest because they're the ones that are doing most of the work. And see, even the power cables and the interconnects make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So the power cables, when they condition the power coming in, it smooths out the sound, and you can hear the difference. And I can hear, like for example, my power amps. I swapped out the power cables, and one made it sound really bright, the other one made it sound really smooth. It was unbelievable, just the power cables.
Wow. Yeah.
And then the same thing again with the interconnects between the power amp and the preamps in the receiver. Made a huge difference. So one was really neutral, one was really bright, and one was kind of warmer and a little bit more like treacly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the speaker cables do the same thing. So you've got to find that balance because you could go too far one way with, say, the power cable, then you have to try and compensate with the other one. Then you just go backwards and forwards. But if you find something that matches the character of the amp in the first place, then it's less work. Imagine it like processing an image.
Yeah.
You know, you go too far. If you underexpose on camera, you've got to push too far in post, and then you got to then you have to compensate with something else, noise reduction. Then you have to go and compensate with, you know, and it just goes on and on and on. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You're trying to find that balance. Whereas you could just try and get it right in camera, and you've just got this line down the middle, which
Yeah.
just simplifies everything. And then the system then just sings,
Yeah.
right? Because at some point, when you start to push the system in terms of power, and you know, this thing puts out like maybe 500 watts a channel just on the floor standers.
Yeah.
You know, I think maybe even more. I don't know. But the power isn't about the volume. The power is about the control, right? And if you're having to rebalance at each point of connection, at some point you're going to hear the weak link. At some frequency range is going to give way a little bit. It's usually kind of in the mid-range or the high end that it kind of gives away. Or even the bass, actually. If the bass starts sounding really flabby, you don't want that. So, yeah, I kind of love my sound.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like hearing you talk about it. You should just do like you describing speakers ASMR, and just like you could have your own channel subscription. Just like go to sleep listening to Sanjay. Describing
I mean, that was
audio.
really relaxing. And I barely
so
know
relaxed
anything
right
of what
now.
we're talking about. Yeah.
Let's
I
talk
want
about
to hear about the room that it's in. That's what I want to hear about.
Let's talk about post-processing. AI, are you doing it yet?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit? You're dabbling?
Yeah.
Are you sold on AI? Are you investing?
I'm a believer.
So
I'm a believer.
do you like the post-processing part?
Yeah. I mean, it's in its infancy-ish. I mean, it's developing rapidly. And it's, to be honest with you, before all the AI brands came along, I had the crazy idea of AI doing all the work back in 2017. And spoke to various people about trying to put this thing together. A lot of people didn't believe it. And a lot of people didn't want to invest time and money in it. And I've been speaking to some of the guys who are out there about getting involved at a deeper level because I do believe it's the way forward. And the thing is, it's not about replacing humans and their creativity. It's the opposite. It's about intelligently automating the mechanical, boring stuff so that the human can free up time to go and do the creative, fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking to a lot of the AI companies that are downstairs, just walking the trade show and stuff. And I agree, like, it seems like most people are leaning into machine learning. So the machine learning, how the human creates, and then being able to automate that so that your work stays true to what your work looks like. Just you don't have to do it anymore.
Exactly.
And I think like the most powerful ones I saw on the showroom were all leaning into that. Like you can feed it your style. You can, do the auto selecting and help it learn what you want it to look for. And then it's really just, almost like a personal assistant or a retoucher. It's just speeding up your processes. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot more of, right? We're going to see a lot more. You teach it, you feed it the information, and then from there, it's gonna keep, your style, but really make it much more. I don't know. So you're reclaiming your life, right? Like all of us that spend so much time. Like you spend this amount of time in shoots, and then you spend twice as long in post.
So people are going to start selling their. So when you train it to do your style, there's going to be something like a.
Oh yeah, like a profile that you'll capture.
I mean, it's already here. You can do that.
Yeah,
right? That's going to be a big thing.
That was my intention when I had this idea back then. Is you would train it, and people shouldn't think of it as something that's taking over. I see it as you create a digital clone of yourself to do the stuff that you don't want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then it creates a profile, which creates a style, and that style can be sold just like people sell presets and actions and that kind of thing, and that's what it's about. But even that profile isn't about then just replicating what they do with your work, because you would continue to train that, so it evolves, it mutates into you anyway. You've just given it a different start point.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So either way, it's going to evolve into something that belongs to you, that you can relate to.
Yeah, I mean, I like even playing around with things like Midjourney and generating images by feeding it different styles, right? Like you can tell it, I want to mix this style with this style. The computer takes elements of both of those things and then kind of creates this new flow, this new experience, or an interpretation of the data that you gave it. And I still think the interesting thing, looking at Midjourney and as a sampling of this is like, I can say like, these are two people I admire, now mix their styles together. And I get this whole new thing, but then I get to refine it by saying, all right, I want you to change this, or I want to, a lot of people don't know you can weight your prompts. So I can be like, well, give Sanjay's style more weight than Leibovitz's style that's in this image. And then it's going to start leaning more towards it. So you can fine tune and refine it. And that's just one example of AI. But I think that potentially, I mean, imagine a photographer's ability to say, I've bought your profile and I've bought this profile, but now I want the machine to take the two and invent something that's new as it's learned to combine those two things. I mean, I think we're like you said, this is early on. We're in the elementary phase of this, but
it's not going away.
It's not going away. If you don't embrace it, it's going to be the same decision as I'm going to stay film and not digital cameras, and you're going to be a dinosaur. Yeah,
you're in for a shock if you don't accept it. I mean, listen, you can see it as a threat, or you can see it as just a very intelligent tool, which is exactly what it is.
Yeah,
and the whole thing about mixing styles, that's interesting. It's like, again, coming back to sound, it's just like equalization. Right. And you can do it parametrically. You could do it, in a very independent, parallel way. But ultimately, so long as you continue to instruct it, it continues to become yours. And I know that then there's going to be people who says, yeah, but your start point was something else. You use someone else's style. It's not creative, it's not original. But then you start crossing these lines about what is originality, what is truly avant-garde, and what's so on. Because everything we do is inspired by things that we see and hear around us.
I think a lot of people suffer from kleptomnesia anyway, right? Like this, you see images, you consume images, and then your brain is really reassembling them, but you're stealing it, and you're kind of forgetting you've stole it because you've consumed art, you've consumed people you admire's images. And even when you think it's original, a lot of times it's an imprint from something that you've already consumed, something you've already saw. And I said, it's like this kleptomnesia. I'm stealing it, and I think it's original, but is there anything new under the sun?
I mean, granted, I think everyone's brains work differently anyway.
Absolutely.
And yes, that will be the case for some people, and for other people, I make a point of talking about style and originality. And influence from other people and other photographers and our heroes and that sort of thing. But I'm big on artists understanding their own personalities and their own experiences and their own sensibilities and sensitivities, and using that as the fuel and the DNA for their creativity. So, instead of looking outward to other people, look inward at yourself and understand that first, and understand how to respond to that before you start responding to things around you.
Right.
It's easier to respond to things around you, only because when you look inwards, you have to address that.
Yeah.
Photographers are very particular and protective of their styles, and I think there's some territory there that they feel like that they own it and no one else can do it.
Right.
Should they be able to copyright a style?
I don't think so, because again, I mean, if I feel like I think in photography we often lean back to like the great masters, right, of the Renaissance era and before paintings, and we tend to look at them as like the example of you've created a new thing. But most of those guys were a pupil learning underneath somebody else, right? And then they basically said, well, I've learned this style, and now I'm just going to take a slight addition to or a slight detour from to create that something that's uniquely me. And I think that's the exact same thing that happens in photography. All of us, air quote, grow up admiring photographers that we've seen.
That's a good air quote.
Yeah,
I think that style.
But we've grown up absorbing this and replicating and playing with, and then somewhere along the line, once you replicate enough, something evolves from all that playing into something that might be more considered uniquely yours. Could you copyright it? I mean, I don't even know, I guess from an ethical point of view, what I would find shameful is, let's say you own a thing, right? You own a style. What happens beyond your life? Because the way that copyright works now is it's beyond your life plus 70 years. So no one can play with that anymore until it's over.
It's different in the UK. Yeah. In the UK, we have copyright and we have intellectual property.
Yeah.
And intellectual property is yours forever until the end of the universe. That's how it works.
Right,
because that's an individual thing you've created, right?
Yeah, and
like a logo.
Well, this is where copyright law gets really complicated. There's so many grey areas, and this is a problem that we had as architects. Because buildings look similar.
Yeah.
And where do you draw the line between what's copied and copywritten and what's stolen intellectual property? And if there's an architect creating a signature hero building, and it's really unusual, and then someone goes ahead and tries to replicate that, then that's going to cause all sorts of issues. If you just go and build 1,000 houses, no one's going to care, right? So at what point do you draw the line and say, I care about this and I don't? And it applies everywhere.
Usually with the law, it comes down to a measurement. If something can be measured, right, then it might be breaking that law. With art, there really isn't a measurement, right? There's colors, there's shapes. So at what point does it become so unique that it's my style that no one else can do it forever?
I mean, this raises several interesting questions. So, talking about style, people say to me, like, what is a style? Like, what is this? How do I find a style? And the question is, what is a style? So, what is a style? I'm asking you guys. How do you see that?
I think it's all encompassing, really. I mean, like from the way you compose an image to your lens choice to, like, I guess to me, to simplify it more, when you can look at an image and you know who shot it without seeing their name attached to it at all, that's a style, because now I can identify your work from a whole bunch of different works.
Yeah.
They could all, like down in the galleries downstairs, right? They can all be side by side, and I can still say, that's yours.
Yeah.
You have a style.
Yeah. I mean, it's more fundamental than that.
Should you be able to protect that, though?
Well, yes and no. So here's the thing.
Is it right to protect it?
Here's the thing. What I teach is that a style is a consistent way of seeing things. Now, each of us will do that differently because we are all individual human beings. We may go to the same school. We may be inspired by the same artists. We may be inspired by the same environment, music, whatever it is. But each of us will respond to those things differently because of our personalities, our personas, our experiences, our sensitivities and sensibilities, and everything else that goes with that. And the response to that becomes the style. So, and that is the consistent way of seeing things. So in photography, I mean, let's talk about architecture, for example. I love Gary's work.
Thank you.
And Gary has a, well done, man. Gary's work is recognizable. You know, he does the wavy titanium looking buildings. Okay. And then you have someone like Le Corbusier, whose designs he never had two buildings that looked the same. They were always experimental and always different every single time. And that was his style, it was a consistent way of seeing things, even though his buildings didn't look consistent. His consistent approach was, I'm going to experiment and learn something new every single time. But the response was from his own personality and experiences. And as you get older, that develops. So the style is never really the same, but it has the same DNA all the way through. It's the same thing with photographers. As we get older, we experience different things in life. We experience different things in our work. We experience different things with our clients and so on and so on. So if you have a mechanical, repetitive, systematic way of lighting and posing and post-production, all that kind of stuff, it will continue to develop because you continue to develop as an individual. If you're more experimental, the approach to that experimentation will be consistent, even though the outcome will be different every single time. And that's impossible to copy because no one's going to be able to replicate what's going on inside your head and your heart.
That's what I was just about to say. I mean, it sounded like you were making the argument and you just landed the plane there with, you know, basically no matter what, I can't share your experiences. So even though I might resonate with the style you apply, I could never be the exact same. I'm going to tweak it a little bit based on my experiences and based on my perception and based on what I attend. I mean, it may be something as simple as I tend to gravitate towards your color palette, and that's what I'm perceiving as your style, or I'm gravitating towards your lighting, which is what I perceive as your style.
All right, what about this scenario?
Mm-hmm.
I am a photographer who's really good at just copying, and I am just copying the styles of you every time you change your style, because I know, people are buying it, it must be good. I figure out how to dissect it. I don't really come up with my own shit.
Sure.
And I start making a living by being the cheaper version of you.
Yeah.
Should people be able to do that? And how would we measure it specifically of like...
I don't know that people should, because again, like if you could protect a style and let's say it doesn't end at that person's life, then arguably where I think it would be a tragedy to the human race is if we lost an artist and that's protected beyond their life, then that art cannot live on. It's done. Only that artist could create.
So what are the things about photography that define it as style? So there's what? We can start with like the format, so the size.
I mean,
so shot medium format or super 35 or whatever. So that's one thing. Color.
Yeah.
Is color like, I
I
there's a lot of it.
I think
How
color,
would you measure that?
Though, I mean, like I would think of people like Kate Woodman. I mean, like color kind of defines her style and how she approaches things. I mean, but that's not universal, right? Like some people, I want to shoot exactly what was there, and I spend a lot of time looking at the color of what was there to color calibrate to what was there. And color's not, I mean, the real true color is what's important to those people, not a color grade.
I mean, give an example. I can speak about myself and my style because I truly understand it. And we speak about other people and their styles, but we don't truly understand it. We can interpret what we see. But for me, when I'm creating an image, I'm usually trying to recreate what I see with my own eyes. And we have a massive dynamic range with our own eyes and our mind.
What is the dynamic range of our eyes?
I don't know.
I don't think it's measurable. That's like trying to come up with the gigabytes of your memory.
I think I think they know what it is.
I mean, they guess, but like, I mean, is it truly
keep
possible?
50, 60 stops? I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, keep going.
I want it to feel like the similar sort of thing. Like be able to see the shadow details, be able to control the highlights, make it feel open.
18 to 20 stops.
What, with our eyes? Mm-hmm. Nah, it's more than that.
Clocks, yeah.
Really?
All right, so it varies, but this is also from a LinkedIn article, so might not be right. It varies, but most places, if you look, you'll find that the human eye clocks in at around 18 to 20 stops worth of dynamic range. That's a contrast ratio of about 1 billion to 1. Your camera, on the other hand, has a high contrast ratio of 12. Well,
fascinating. But does that take into account how your brain interprets? Because your eyes may have a dynamic range of whatever it is, but then when it's moving around, it's piecing together everything else it's seeing. So right now I'm looking at you. You have a dark room behind you, but I can still perceive things in the shadows. And it's, the highlights aren't clipping, the shadows aren't clipping in my head. My brain is kind of making the adjustments. So I guess there's the dynamic range of the eye and dynamic range of the image that your brain pieces together from all of that. And I think that's far more. I'm not sure. It's worth looking into.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the listeners might.
I'm looking forward to when Elon figures out the whole brain chip thing, because then maybe we can hack into and put 3D LUTs into our eyes.
This is when our styles are really in jeopardy, because suddenly you're tapping into an area of the brain and the thinking and the understanding and the experiences that so far are only accessible through the interaction with that individual and their work. That's scary stuff. I mean, I'm a fan of sci-fi. I love Star Trek, and I love the concept of the Borg. And that's kind of the beginning of that whole thing for those people who understand what I'm talking about. But, with the whole style thing, for me, I want to open up the dynamic range. I want it to look like what you would see with your eyes. That's a part of the style. The lighting is cinematic. I'm inspired by movies. So I'll look at how movies are lit and try and use that in my imagery. The posing tends to be kind of soft and elegant, and I try to make it as timeless as possible, not too overly fashionistic, so it doesn't date.
Have you gotten into making your own LUTs, designing them?
A little bit. I mean, people have been asking me to do that, and I think that's probably going to come. I'm building up some educational content this year, so that'll build as part of that.
I think LUTs are the coolest thing, and I would personally like to see. You can do this with video cameras now, but actually shooting, and you can shoot tethered and do it as it ingests, but actually being able to load LUTs into cameras, right?
Yeah.
I want to be able to build a LUT for an environment that I know that I'm going to go to.
Sure.
So when I'm shooting it, I'm actually seeing the color grade.
Yeah.
I'm a color first individual for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Everything color coordinated is really important to me. So it's the first thing I look at. So I actually, when LUTs came out, I was super excited because finally, we can see and explore colors at the raw level.
Yeah.
Way up front.
Yeah.
So we know pretty quickly, if we're exploring a scene or exploring a setting, especially with commercial, it's awesome to explore what is possible, establish that for color, and then as you're capturing, you're actually seeing the color too. Because now, we're working with this raw format. We have to kind of assume, or in many cases, depending on the camera, it's just really milky, no detail, everything's flat. I don't want to, then I'm just really looking at composition, hoping we'll figure it out in post. You know, so I want to see color up front first, and I think
Are you
cameras
talking about video or photo or both?
Well, I'd like it to be photo. I'd like to be able to go out on any Sony camera and be shooting, whether it's portraits or landscape, whatever.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to see on the back of the screen the actual LUT.
Yeah.
Right there, and then load LUTs.
Yeah.
Because the hard thing about LUTs is they're really for that specific environment. You know, they're really for a specific, even exposure. That's the best way to design them.
Yeah.
So you can often, and depending on the color workflow, the ACES color workflow, and how you made them is also important. But I think that's just a random way of saying that's what I want in a camera now. A still camera.
There's interesting things happening. AI is making its rounds and getting involved in everything.
Yeah.
And so, I'm ambassador for Canon in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And the leaps that Canon have made over the years with deep learning in their focusing system is inspiring, revolutionary, and inspiring.
Did they tell you what's coming before you have the secret bat phone?
Yes and no.
Is it like a red phone next to your bed?
No.
Middle of the night it rings?
No. I had the coolest experience though. Back in 19, the engineers from Canon Inc. So Canon Inc. is the head of the beast. They call all the shots around the world. And it was a real honor for me because basically what happens is when they come to the UK, they go to the Canon headquarters and people meet them there. But these guys actually wanted to come to me, to the showroom, to see how I do what I do. They wanted to see how I work, how I use the cameras. They wanted to see my post-production workflow. They wanted to see my print workflow. They wanted to see my printing. And they kind of wanted to tap into my brain so that they could understand what I need as an ambassador for what I do. Because I'm one of the handful of ambassadors that shoots and prints and not just shoots and edits.
Are you the most polite ambassador on the team, you think?
No, we're all pretty polite.
But British are usually the most polite, in my experience.
We're all pretty polite. I mean, so as I said, I'm an EMEA ambassador. So we've met, the other ambassadors in Europe and that sort of thing. I haven't met all of them. It's a big program. And obviously I meet the guys in the US and Canon US. But it's a different entity. The whole thing works very differently.
Yeah.
But Canon's Canon. Everyone's very polite. Everyone's very respectful. And everyone's all about development for the greater good. That's the attitude in Canon.
Yeah.
And just coming back to the AI thing, the Japanese guys came over to have this meeting, and they wanted to know how I use my camera physically, the decision making in terms of like settings and why I do what I do and how it fits within my workflow, how it fits within me shooting weddings and that sort of thing. And they asked me the best question any photographer could be asked. What would you want in your dream camera? And at this point, it's like rubbing hands, kid in the candy store. The shopping list comes out of all the wish list. And I literally said, I want this because of this. I want this because of this.
Wait. What was it?
It was loads of things. So basically,
what are they?
Let's just say the R3, right? The R3 has probably about 60% of what I asked for, which is phenomenal. And two of the key things, one of them actually came into the 1DX Mark III. So I shoot with back button focus. And for the Canon users out there on the one series, there's two buttons on the front face, which are programmable. So one of them I set so that if you hold it down, it switches from one shot to servo. Because when I'm shooting weddings, sometimes I just need to start tracking things as it's moving. Other times I just want to go one shot.
And the camera's not smart enough to do that? Canon's not there yet? Trick question. How do you answer? This is going to be important.
This was 1DX.
Oh, back in the day. All right. So
okay,
pre-mirrorless.
This is
All right.
exactly.
Damn it. You're so good.
Yeah. I'm an ambassador. Okay. So I disable the focus on the trigger. But if you need to move the focus point around, you have to take your thumb off the back button focus button, move it to the multi-controller. So I said, I need to be able to move the focus point without lifting my thumb, my index finger and my middle finger off the other three buttons so that I'm not missing the moments. And they actually put in some way of tracking your thumb movement on that focus button on the back so you can move the focus point around whilst engaged. And the other thing I said to them was, back in the 80s, they created a camera called the EOS 3, which would follow your eye and focus where your eye goes. But the processing power back then wasn't that great. So it was a bit slow. It didn't work so well. And I said, today's technology, the processing power is massive. It would be great if you could bring that back. And they brought it back in the R3. So wherever you point your eyes, it pre-focuses on that point.
What?
Is it called the Sanjay effect?
Yeah. Well, they call it eye control focus. I asked them to call it Sanjay, but
They said no.
Eye control focus. Is it like eye control focus?
Eye control focus.
Eye control focus.
Is it EYE?
EY.
Yeah. No, it should have been I. Just like I. Like I
control
iPhone.
focus.
Well,
all inclusive.
Well, my business is called Jogia, so they did kind of,
there
was a little reference there.
Oh,
yeah, a little reference there.
So good. True or false? the best and only great food out of the UK is Indian food.
I mean, I like
it's one
fish
of the
and chips.
best. It's one of the best.
I mean, I feel like fish and chips doesn't count.
Fish and chips definitely
Right,
count.
so
If they made it first, it counts.
So pub food, like that's
I love pub
what I'm
food.
bringing up is every time I go to the UK, it is the best Indian food ever. And everywhere else I go, I'm like, what are you guys doing putting mayonnaise on pizza over there? Get out of here with that.
Yeah. I have a good friend of mine that lives in the UK, and I talk to him almost every day, and he informed me that he eats like bacon and ketchup sandwiches, and I just cannot get around that.
Is it
Yeah,
that
that-
everyone's
that's
so
a-
grumpy
that's a
about
thing.
the sun that they're just like, I'm just going to eat this plain shit?
Maybe. I'm vegetarian, so I don't,
Oh.
like all that.
You picked the best cuisine to do that with. I can eat-
what, Indian food?
Yeah.
No, Indian vegetarian food is the best.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's the most options.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. The best Indian food is in India, but in the UK, there's some.
I mean,
epic.
that's where I was
Wow.
going to go. It's like, have you been to India?
No,
Yeah.
I've only
If
been
you're
to
saying
UK.
that the UK has
I'm
the
planning.
best Indian food.
All right,
I
so
feel
where
like
do-
go to India.
Where do I go? I feel like you have to go to India for 30 days or more. Can't really do it in 2 weeks, can you?
No.
Yeah. So where do I go if I have 30 days? What's my schedule like?
Wow. I mean, I haven't been to India for a few years, but I'm going in about 2 weeks. Okay, so
Need an assistant to carry your stuff?
yeah,
Sure.
sure.
Call Gary along?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Do you need an assistant
Join me
for
out
the
there.
assistant to carry?
No, I'm teaching out there. There's a conference out there, so they're forming a little WPPI type thing over there.
Oh, nice.
in
I
its
bet it's going to be
infancy.
way better.
Well, it's early days and it's a huge market and it needs it out
Yeah.
there, so it's going to be cool. And I'm happy to be part of the gestation of that whole thing. But okay, if you're going to go visit, I'm landing in Mumbai, and it's an eclectic city. It's crazy. So Mumbai, Delhi. I kind of enjoyed Mumbai more than Delhi. But you want to go to the historical places. You want to go to like Rajasthan and go see the palaces and things like that. So there's a city called Jaipur which has beautiful palace. It's such a beautiful place. You want to go to Goa for just like unwinding. If you want paradise and just
Go to
chill.
Goa. I can remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I
a good
remember that one.
catchphrase.
Goa's amazing. If you want to go for, say, like health retreats, then Kerala has incredible health retreats. So if you just want to go and
Like meditate with monks, or
cleanse your body and mind and your spirit.
I feel like
a
that's
great
where I
place
need to go.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
I'm
Why
down.
are we doing that?
I-
What are we doing with
we
our
need
lives?
to definitely get it cleansed before. I mean, I feel like as even as PRO EDU evolves and we're getting ready to go into like the 2.0 phase, that would just be awesome to go
Yeah.
cleanse,
We're
get
ramping it
reset,
up.
and then
That's the
bam.
thing. It's the reset.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
reset.
I could reset.
Especially if you need a run up for the next jump, that's the thing to
Yeah.
do. And it's literally just like
Yeah.
align your mind, align your body, align your spirit, align your energies.
I'm getting ready to
because
turn 47. I feel like 47 years of all this stuff needs
We're the
to
same
be
age,
reset.
man.
Yeah. Well, shake it off.
we're the same
We need to
age.
go on an ayahuasca trip.
Yeah, I'm down for that too.
Oh, life changing, the best. All right. On that note, Sanjay, thank you so much for coming by. I know we went a little over.
That's
but
cool. I enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Good conversation. Thanks
What's-
for having me.
What's the rest of your week look like?
This evening, so this is Wednesday evening. I lose track.
Yeah.
It's been a full couple of days. There's been lots of talks, lots of shoots, lots of photo walks, lots of judging and image reviews
A
and
lot of
stuff.
judgy people here. What's up with that?
Oh, that's the thing is, it's okay. I mean, we're competition judges, but the critique is the best way for any
Yeah.
photographer just to expand and grow.
I mean, beyond photography, a critique is a sleeper, right? Like if you want to improve anything, any craft, you find people who are already successful at it and you get their feedback.
100%.
Like that is what elite performers do. I mean, I don't care if you're a quarterback in the NFL, you're having somebody watch what you do and you're having them take it apart and tell
Yeah.
you how you can improve.
Yep.
It's not threatening. I mean, there's a distinct difference between someone critiquing you and somebody criticizing you. And I think too many people get the two C's mixed together
Yeah.
and they just feel like it's
Then
a
they
threat.
start other seas
Yeah.
start flying around. And it's a bad
We can't
thing.
talk about those because we're not in the UK.
Yeah. This airs on Nick at Night, so we got to behave.
Yeah. That's the unsaid word in the
Yeah.
UK. Well, it's not unsaid.
It's not
it
unsaid
should
at
be
all.
unsaid.
It's
Yeah.
daily.
What, Nick and Nick?
Yeah.
No, I'll let you know after we're off the air.
The C bombs. Yeah. No, but I mean,
Thanks,
but you're right. The critiques are powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you have to be open to it. And what's happening here is people enter the print competitions. This year it's on a pause at WPPI, but it's happening next week in London at SWPP. And I'm, very grateful and very privileged to be a judge, now a chairperson for the competitions there. But people enter these images because they want the critique, because they want the growth and the expansion.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do it otherwise.
I would hope not.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I can't wait to go with you on your trip in a few days. It's going to be great. We should probably talk details, huh?
Start
Yeah.
back.
Well, I fly back to London tomorrow, and then
I brought my passport.
it's SWPP next
Don't
week.
leave
Come and
home
join us.
without- Yeah.
Come and
All
join
right,
us.
I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
Backing up.
All right. Thanks.
Well, that's all for today's podcast. Join us next time for more interesting discussion about the wonderful world of photography and her dark, magical secrets. I'm fascinated with Instagram. It's such a simple construct. Just take a picture and post it on the internet. The other day, I took a picture of my neighbor's pet rabbit. He told me not to post it, but, I did anyway. Wow.